Okay, this is Sitrap, the podcast on Philippine affairs and Filipino interests. I'm Ivan at home from Manila, joined by my co-host, who should be here shortly, Inform PH. In a Senate hearing this February 2026, Senator Rodante Marcoleta sparked outrage by suggesting that the Philippines should, quote, give up the Kalayaan Island Group to ease tensions with China, claiming some features fall outside our exclusive economic zone and questioning the legal basis of the West Philippine Sea. Philippine Coast Guard Commander Jay Tarila invited Marcoleta to see the reality on the ground via a maritime awareness flight, but Marcoleta deflected by challenging Tarila, maritime expert Jake Batacumbakal, and retired Justice Antonio Carpio to a quote friendly debate. Justice Carpio over here has accepted and vowing to defend our legal claims rooted in international law in the 2016 arbitral award that invalidated China's nine dash line claim. To unback this controversy and reaffirm our territorial integrity in the West Philippine Sea, we have with us the man himself, retired Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. He was a key player in the Philippines' landmark arbitration case against China and continues to champion our maritime rights through lectures, writings, and public advocacy. Justice Carpio, welcome to our podcast, Sitrep.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me, and good evening to our viewers.
Good evening, Justice Carpio. So, first of all, we can start with our first question, sir. Uh, Firstly, thank you for joining our podcast. So, for our listeners who may not be fully familiar with your work, sir, can you perhaps briefly share your background with us in maritime law and how your experience in the Supreme Court has shaped your unwavering stance on defending Philippine sovereignty in the West Philippine Sea?
Well, I have been doing research on the our maritime zones in the West Philippine Sea for more than a decade now. I wrote the unanimous decision of the Supreme Court upholding Republic Act 9522, which uh, ordained that uh, the islands of the Kalayaan Island Group and the uh, Scarborough Shoal will be governed by the regime of islands under UNCLOS. And this law also corrected our archipelagic baselines to align, to conform with UNCLOS. And I've been discussing this all over the world for the last several years now. Thank you.
And we thank you so much for your great work for our republic, Justice Carpio. So let's dive into the recent controversy. Senator Marcoleta suggested that the Philippines should, quote, give up the Kalayaan Island Group, and that's been widely criticized by many online as echoing China's narrative. How do you interpret his statement, sir, especially in light of his later clarification? And what danger do you think this poses when it comes to our national interests?
Well, every public official, including members of the Senate, members of the House, take an oath to defend the Constitution. And the Constitution includes a definition of our territory and also a definition of uh, a statement there that the state shall protect its marine wealth in its exclusive economic zone. So these are duties of the state, and the public officials manning the government should implement this and not weaken or deny or disown this. No? So the Kalayaan Island Group is part of Philippine territory under Republic Act 9522 and even under prior laws because Republic Act 9522 only amended prior laws. It's there specific. Philippines has territorial sovereignty and jurisdiction over the Kalayaan Island Group. And I believe, if I remember correctly, Senator Marcoleta was still a party list member of Congress when this law was passed. Uh, I don't know if he was present, but it was a unanimous vote by the House and by the Senate, and also in the Supreme Court. It was a unanimous vote upholding Republic Act 9522. So, our own laws, our own constitution says uh, Kalayaan Island Group belongs to the Philippines. And if you are a public official, you take an oath to defend the Constitution and therefore defend Philippine territory. So, it's outrageous that a public official, a high-ranking public official, would say, "Let's give up Kalayaan Island Group." It's there in the Constitution. So, your other question is, what was your other question?
What risk does this pose to Philippine sovereignty, if ever,
Well,
to our national interest?
the risk there is that this is uh, mis this is miseducating the Filipinos. You are telling the Filipinos uh, something that is against the Constitution, something against the law, and you have to take an oath uh, to defend the Constitution and to abide by existing laws. And it's really outrageous that a senator would still say today that let's give up Kalan Island Group. It's been there since 1734. It's in the official map of Philippine territory during the Spanish regime. The first official map is the Pedro Murillo Velarde map, and it's there in the official map of Philippine territory during the Spanish regime. It was called Los Bajos de Paragua, the shoals of Paragua. Paragua was the old Spanish name of Palawan. So the shoals of Palawan are the Spratlys. And also, Scarborough Shoal is there. It's called Panacot. And in the 1808 map of the Philippines, the second official map of of Philippine territory during the Spanish regime, it's also there. And in the last official map of Philippine territory during the Spanish regime, the 1875 Carta General del Archipelago Filipino, it's there. Panacot is there, Scarborough is there with depth soundings, and the entire Kalayaan Island Group is there with depth soundings with names. The first time that China claimed Scarborough Shoal and the Spratlys was in 1947 when they published the uh, to 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 materials. They published their China Handbook of 1947, and they published the Nine Dash Line of 1940. That was the first time. China is a Johnny come lately here. We have been we have claimed uh, uh, this Kalayaan Island Group and the Scarborough Shoal since 1734, and the moment it's claimed already, and nobody objected from 1970, 18, from 1734 to 1933, nobody objected. The first to claim uh, the Spratlys outside of the Philippines was France, 1933. And when China published its first China handbook, it did not claim, that was in 1943, the first China handbook, official publication uh, of the Republic of China under the Kuomintang. They did not claim the Spratlys or Scarborough Shoal. They said that their southernmost territory was Triton Island of the Paracels. 1943, the China was telling the world, our southernmost territory is Triton Island of the Paracel Group. That's you have to cross the South China Sea high seas to reach Scarborough Shoal or the Spratlys. So uh, China's claim that it owned these islands since 2,000 years ago is fake, and that's exactly what the tribunal said. The Nine Dash Line uh, is a recent invention of China. I mean, the the tribunal invalidated the Nine Dash Line as a claim to maritime resources.
I mean,
Thank you.
Justice Carpio, just as a follow up to that, sir, what do you think is the motivation behind Senator Marcoleta and others that, you know, many have pointed it out, that it seems to be an echoing of Chinese narratives, especially from the Chinese embassy? What do you think is his motivation for this? Is it simple ignorance?
Well, it's either ignorance or they really believe that China owns the South China Sea under the 9 now 10 dash line. It's either or.
And for our second question, sir, we, as we said, Marcoleta has questioned the legal existence of the West Philippine Sea and whether the Kalayaan Island groups falls within it. And this is certainly something that you see other similar people from similar persuasions are posting online, namely from the Duterte camp. They're talking about how the West Philippine Sea appears to just, that we can't declare it because we've got overlapping claims, because we've got overlapping disputes with China. Can you perhaps give a solid legal foundation on these terms under Philippine law? What is the Kalayaan Island Group? What is the West Philippine Sea? UNCLOS in the 2016 Arbitral Award. Why is it crucial for Filipinos to understand that the KIG is unequivocally part of our territory? And what do you think about those who would question it being part of our territory?
Well, the first time that the term West Philippine Sea entered our legal vocabulary in the Philippines was when President Aquino III uh, issued an admissive order declaring the West Philippine Sea. And he said the West Philippine Sea constitutes the Philippines' maritime zones, namely territorial sea and exclusive economic zone. That was during the time of President Aquino, the 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 third, when the Congress adopted the Philippine Maritime Zones Act in that was I think 2024. Uh, and at that time, Marcoleta was a member of the House of Representatives, a party list member. The House and the Senate approved the bill. It became a law signed by the President of the Philippines. Uh, the title of the law is the Philippine Maritime Zones Act of 2009. And in Section 2 of this Philippine Maritime Zones Act, it says that the West Philippine Sea refers to the maritime zones of the Philippines in the western side of the Philippine archipelago, and it includes the maritime features of islands of the Kalayaan Island Group. So, what are the maritime zones of the Philippines under UNCLOS? The maritime zones of the Philippines under UNCLOS are territorial sea, exclusive economic zone, and the extended continental shelf. So, the the maritime zones, 12 nautical mile territorial sea, 200 nautical mile EEZ, and the extended continental shelf is up to a maximum of 150 nautical miles from the edge of our 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. Now, there are about four islands of the Kalayaan Island Group that are outside our exclusive economic zones. But those are still part of the West Philippine Sea because the legal definition of the West Philippine Sea in Section 2 of the Philippine Maritime Zones Act includes the maritime features of our islands in the Kalayaan Island Group. And the Kalayaan Island Group uh, includes islands outside our exclusive economic zone. But even then, the entire Kalayaan Group would fall under our exclusive economic zone and extended continental shelf because we still have an extended continental shelf uh, beyond our 200 nautical mile in the Spratlys. Now, we have filed already an extended continental shelf claim before the UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. And Vietnam has filed, Malaysia has filed, and under the rules of the UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf, they will not act if there is an opposition to our claim. So the next step should be we should bring this to arbitration. China also claims
Okay.
this area, but China is so far, it's more than 350 nautical miles away from this area. And under UNCLOS, you cannot claim maritime zones beyond more than 300 feet, 350 nautical miles from your baselines. So we should I've been recommending for the longest time that we should now bring Vietnam, Malaysia, and China to arbitration in an UNCLOS tribunal. It will be compulsory arbitration. If a country doesn't appear, they will still be bound, just like in our arbitration against China. But I don't know why the Philippine government is taking too long or is not even considering it. And that's one of the reasons why a fellow like Marcoleta is saying it's not part of the Philippines
Correct.
because it's outside our
Mm.
exclusive economic zone. But uh, that's totally wrong, inherently wrong, because it doesn't mean that if it's outside our exclusive economic zone, we can no longer claim a territory. You can claim a territory anywhere if you were the
Mm.
first to discover and you exercise peaceful and continuous uh,
Occupation.
display of sovereignty. That's the ruling under international law. Discovery plus exercise of peaceful and
Sovereign.
uh, continuous display of sovereignty if there are inhabitants in that geologic feature. If there are no inhabitants, discovery alone is sufficient to acquire sovereignty. So it's clear that Marcoleta is totally wrong. And recently I heard him say, because he said there is no legal concept, that is just a figment of our imagination, the West Philippine Sea. But when I pointed
Yep.
out the West Philippine Sea is in our law, and it was passed in by Congress where Marcoleta himself was a party list member of the House. So he's saying now, yes, there is a domestic law, but there is no international law recognizing it. There will be no international recognizing it because countries don't recognize uh, maritime zones like they recognize a state. If there's a new state, they'll recognize it. But all these maritime zones are inherent in a coastal state. There's this 1969 case, the North Sea Continental Shelf case, which says a coastal state, by virtue of its sovereignty over that territory, land territory, has ipso facto ab initio inherent right to the territorial sea, to the continental shelf, without need of any uh, proclamation, without need of any occupation. It's inherent. If you've seen this an island and the only one third or one fourth of the island is above water high tide, but the base of that goes down to the bottom of the sea. It 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 it's a slope. So the theory of the law is you also owned the the territorial sea because the the shelf belongs is part of your land. That's expressed in the principle land dominates the sea. The moment you have sovereignty over the land, automatically you have sovereignty over the adjacent territorial sea, that's 12 nautical miles, and sovereign rights over the continental shelf
So
without need of any proclamation.
Justice Carpio, just to clarify, you're saying that just because the West Philippine Sea is a Philippine name for that area, it doesn't then mean that our sovereignty over that area is made up the same way as Marcoleta and his supporters seem to be
Yeah.
saying. Just
In
be-
other words, we have the right to call it West Philippine Sea because first, we have sovereignty over our territorial sea. We have sovereign rights and jurisdiction over EEZ. And in our extended continental shelf, we have also sovereign rights to exploit the natural resources in the seabed because we have this sovereign rights. International law recognizes we have sovereign rights over our EEZ and uh, the extended continental shelf. Of course, we have priority to call it exclusive our West Philippine Sea because we have sovereign rights. Nobody can dispute that. That has been affirmed by the Arbitral Tribunal at The Hague. We have a full exclusive economic zone in the West Philippine Sea. That means up to 200 nautical mile. That excludes the territorial sea of the Kalayaan Island Group and Scarborough Shoal, because UNCLOS only governs maritime zones. It does not govern uh, uh, territories or island territories. So because we have sovereign rights, we have the right to name it. Uh, if they object, what can they do? We have the right, because it's our own exclusive economic zone. They can call their own exclusive economic zone the East China Sea if they want. So the we have the legal rights, and if you have the legal rights, you can call it what you want to call it. Nobody can dispute that we call the Philippines the Philippines. It's our own right. So there is a legal basis, very clear, that, and the West Philippine Sea is already recognized under international law because there was the arbitral award by the Hague UNCLOS Tribunal. And we have claimed the extended continental shelf beyond the Spratlys, where the rest of the islands of the Kalayaan Group are located. And that's why I said, let's go to arbitration and settle this issue. Because we have people like Marcoleta who who think that we don't have sovereign rights over our extended continental shelf. We have, because in the continental shelf, your rights vest on you ipso facto, by the mere fact that you're a sovereign, you have sovereignty over the Palawan Island, and uh, it it is ab initio your right from the very beginning. You don't need any express proclamation, but under UNCLOS you must file it to prevent any overlap. But since Malaysia and Vietnam are claiming it, so there is an overlap. So there's a mechanism to resolve that overlap.
Mm.
China is also claiming. So let's bring it now to UNCLOS, and the the practice in UNCLOS when they decide the overlapping extended continental shelf is just to divide it equitably.
Mhm.
But China cannot participate in this division, equitable division, because it is too far. It's more than 350 nautical miles. The maximum you can claim, your total maritime zones cannot exceed 350 nautical miles from your baselines. From Hainan, it's more than 350 nautical miles. So that's why China will lose in this arbitration, and the winners will be the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia, and it will be divided based on your coastlines. It's a mathematical formula almost, no, almost. So all the three countries, Vietnam, Malaysia, will be the winners, and the only loser will be China. So we have to move. We cannot just uh, sit down and, oh, we filed it already. But under the rules of the UN Commission on the Limits of Convention, once there are oppositions, the nations involved must bring it to arbitration.
So, Justice Carpio, so currently we have no arbitration with the countries that overlapping our claims.
None, because mm, uh, Vietnam will not file it because they don't want to displease China. They have a long land boundary with
Mhm.
China. Malaysia will not file it because they also don't want to displease China. They have a lot of investments in China, and China has a lot of investments in Malaysia. So
Mhm.
they're saying, why doesn't the
Yes, yes.
Philippines do it? That's why
Initiate
I've been
one,
saying we
yes.
cannot afford to freeze this, because every day China gets stronger economically and militarily.
Okay, so given our current political climate, so how do you see this going forward with, considering the direction that the current administration is going?
Well, it requires really a champion in the cabinet. When we filed our arbitration at The Hague 2013, there was a champion. There was a uh, Secretary Albert Del Rosario. He was the
Okay.
mover there. That's why they had to listen to him. But here in this in submitting the extended continental shelf claim to
Mhm.
arbitration, there is no champion. Nobody, the diplomats in the
Nobody.
DFA don't want to move. That's why we have people like Marcoleta saying, "Oh, beyond the exclusive economic zone, it's not recognized internationally." That's wrong because our rights are inherent ab initio, uh, ipso facto, but because of an overlap, it has to be resolved by arbitration. There is an
Mhm.
overlap. It's the duty of our government officials to bring it to arbitration because that's the only way to resolve this now. Otherwise, this will be outstanding and it will be a burden of future generations. While we have the support of the world, let us proceed. Thank you.
So speaking of burden and long-term, long-term damage, this isn't the first time that pro-China voices have surfaced in Philippine politics. So, from your perspective, how did the previous administration or the administration pivot to Beijing? So, such as downplaying the arbitral ruling and allowing Chinese incursions, how did it weaken our position in the Philippine Sea? Did you think that it caused long-term damage? That's why
Well,
we are in this current situation that we are in right now.
well, the it has allowed to confuse our people, but that's why we are my group. We are continuing to explain everything in accordance with international law and in accordance with the domestic law. But of course, China has voices, as you call it, voices here in the Philippines, and they've been there even during the time of
Yes, yes.
Aquino, or even the time also during much so in
Oh,
time of Duterte, and they're still around. So but if you look at the survey of opinion polls for the last 20 years, it has been consistent. 80 to 90% of the Filipino people uh, want
Trust,
to
right?
assert the arbitral award, want to assert our maritime zones, want to defend our island territories in the West Philippine Sea, Scarborough Shoal, and the Kalayaan Island Group. So when you reach 80 to 90%, that's almost unanimous as far as opinion surveys are concerned.
Ms. Carpio, speaking of public opinion, you accepted Marcoleta's challenge to a debate. So, what are the key points that you wish to emphasize? In case he does accept, what are the key points you will emphasize to dismantle his claims, and how might this debate help educate the public in regards to our rights? Do you see it as an opportunity to counter a lot of the disinformation, or to counter a lot of its their local sympathizers, Chinese sympathizers? How do you think that debate would go if he does accept it?
Well, two things, because Marcoleta has repeatedly said that the West Philippine Sea does not exist. It only exists in the imagination of Filipinos. So the first item that we should discuss, first topic is there a legal definition of the West Philippine Sea under Philippine law? And then the second is because he has been saying that let's give up the KIG because first of all, many islands, 4 islands of the KIG are beyond the West Philippine Sea, beyond our exclusive economic zone. So the second item should be, are the maritime zones of the Kalayaan Island Group part of the West Philippine Sea under the law? Yun lang. Very simple, because I don't want to complicate it because it will be difficult to follow. So those two, and that will clear up a lot of things. That will clarify a lot of things. So it will be a very simple debate. Now, if he wants additional topics, we can do a debate nationwide. We'll hold it in universities in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. But we
Like a
have to
road.
start from the basic. The basic is there such a concept as West Philippine Sea under our laws? Because he's been saying that's just in the figment of our imagination. So those are the two things, two two issues that I want to raise in our debate. But if he wants other issues, we can have series of debates, and we hold it in universities nationwide.
So, Alex, do you have any more questions?
I have a question. So, looking forward, Justice Carpio, so what strategic advice would you give to the current administration and the Philippine Navy and our Coast Guard to strengthen our control over features like those in the Kalayaan Island Group without escalating to conflict or making China reactive? So, how can we build on international alliances to deter further Chinese aggression?
Well, first, uh, we have to go to arbitration again in the extended
Okay, that's
continental
fine.
shelf. We cannot leave that hanging. That's too obvious. It's the duty of our government officials to secure a ruling for that, and we can never lose there. That's why China will never agree. That, to me, will advance our interest because we have to build. We built the foundation of this our our uh, our claim to the West Philippine Sea by winning that arbitral award. We must build on that. Future generation of Filipinos must build on that. And precisely this is the second case that we should file. Second, we should enter into security arrangements with like-minded states. We have a visiting forces agreement with the U.S., with Japan, with Australia. We signed one with New Zealand recently, and we should have one with the UK and France and Canada. Uh, we should have all the security arrangements with like-minded states who defend the international legal order. So, and also we should include in our curriculum the West Philippine Sea. The Chinese educate their people from grade school to college that they own the South China Sea since 2,000 years ago. It's of course a fiction, but we will teach our children the historical facts based on international law because we don't want people to think like Marcoleta. I would think that is just a matter of lack of information.
Yeah.
Uh, but we should not allow this to happen to our school children. It's our duty to explain to the Filipino people, to the next generation, that they have to carry on the struggle to defend the West Philippine Sea, and they will not carry the struggle if they don't know the history and legal basis of our claim to the West Philippine Sea. Thank you.
Justice Scorpio, how do we counter, the disinformation that's happening right now in the country? The message of the West Philippine Sea is being, uh, I think, monopolized by pro. They're trying to monopolize the narrative. So how can we bring the message to the grassroots, to the regular Filipinos? Because yes, they understand that we need to fight for our rights in the West Philippine Sea, but the message, all that, the jargons, how can we make it resonate more with the masses? Do you think we need to do something about how we how we relay the message to the regular Filipino,
Yes,
or
Especially in the face of
increase
all
our
the
voices?
disinformation.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially in the face
yeah,
of all the
especially if a
disinformation.
senator is taking all the limelight or the spotlight. about the narrative, about their narrative in the West Philippine Sea?
Well, I have talked about this to Secretary Sani Angara, and the DepEd will, starting next school year, they will have a they will include in the curriculum the West Philippine Sea as a part of history. No, so they will be, and
Mhm.
they
So
have
that's why.
they are preparing the materials now. No? So that will be the start,
That's good.
and there is a pending bill in the Senate to mandatorily include this in the curriculum, and I hope that will pass. And in the meantime, there are Filipinos. I'm not the only one talking about this. There are many explaining it to the people. Uh, I have my lectures uploaded on YouTube, and this is available to everyone. It teaches everything about the history of the South China Sea and our basis of our legal claim. So I think we have to include it in the curriculum. That's the only way we have to formalize it, and so that we don't have people like Marcoleta who later on say that there is no such thing as a West Philippine Sea.
Last question for me, Justice
Including
Carpio.
our yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Staying with that notion of disinformation, one of the things you're hearing from pro-China voices right now is they seem to be going really attacking the transparency initiative. That was started under this admin, a total change from what we had under Duterte. They're calling it ineffective. They're saying we actually lost territory. They're attacking Toriela and the Coast Guard at the moment. What do you think about this, sir? What would you say about those who would say this is ineffective, this is unhelpful, this is getting in the way of the DFA, etc.?
There are only two things that will make China withdraw its claim to the West Philippine Sea, because we have the legal right. There's the arbitral award. But China will ignore that. There are only two ways wherein China will change its mind. One, China, out of the goodness of its heart, will voluntarily withdraw its claim and recognize the arbitral award, which is unlikely, highly unlikely. The second is if the world tells China, you have to abide by with international law. You have to recognize the arbitral award. If all countries, all the peoples of the world will say that, China will eventually follow, because China needs the world. It has to export to survive. It has to import to survive. And if the world will support us, China cannot make the 10 dash line its international boundary, because that is the objective of China, to make the 10 dash line its international boundary, claiming all the islands and resources within the 10 dash line. That means we will lose 80% of
Mhm.
our exclusive economic zone and the entire Kalayaan Island Group. So, China will not voluntarily abandon its claim. Our task is to convince the world that we are correct so that they will support us. Before the arbitral award was issued, people in the West were saying China might be correct because they are an old civilization. They might have owned the South China Sea since 2,000 years ago. And I hear this from even uh, lawyers in the West, in America, the articles in the Harvard Law Review. But when the arbitral award came out, and it's very clear, there is no basis. Uh, there is no basis based on history. This nine dash line claim has no basis in history and no basis in law. And when the arbitral
Correct.
award was issued, the Western people in the West, in Europe and the United States, saw it clearly, and they now say this nine dash line, now 10 dash line, is ridiculous. You cannot claim an entire sea. They laugh at this claim now. There's no country in the world that's supporting China in its position that it owns almost the entire South China Sea. No, not a single country. And that's why we are now supported by almost all the countries. China is isolated. So that is the way to win. That's why I'm saying let's file another arbitration case to cement our extended continental shelf, and the world will tell China there's an arbitral award already. Malaysia will follow that because they will be part of the award,
Oh.
and Vietnam will follow that. So I do not know why we're not doing it. I mean, it's so obvious. So every day, China becomes stronger militarily and economically, and it will be more difficult for us to pursue this arbitration. So uh, let us bring that issue now to an UNCLOS tribunal to settle it, because that's the way to win, to pile arbitral awards on arbitral awards, so that the whole world will understand what's happening and who is legally correct, who is historically correct in the South China Sea dispute. Thank you.
Justice Carpio, include our group in your cause, our CITRIP group. We've been doing the educating, right, our audience about the West Philippine Sea issue.
Yeah, sure.
How how long we've been doing this? We've been doing this for a year. So
What does
Justice
CITREP
Carpio,
mean?
situation report PH.
Okay. Okay.
We've been interviewing international foreign relation experts, Ivan, right? Who are our previous guests?
Yes, I think yeah, we got Hader and some of the other.
Yeah, you can.
Colin Ko, yeah. So Ray Powell, we've interviewed
Yeah.
Colin Ko, Ray Powell. So
Okay,
last
let's do it together.
yeah, well,
Let's
include us
do it
in the
together.
cause.
You can call me anytime, and if there's an issue, and probably one day we will have a meeting with all these groups. So we'll do
Yes,
that
sir.
one of
Yes,
the day.
sir. Justice Scorpio, thank you for your insights and for tirelessly, defending our seas and educating the public. So, where can our listeners find more of your work, such as your books, lectures,
Eh,
or
Yeah,
upcoming events? Yeah, are you active on social medias, on Facebook
I
or
I'm not on social media, but I'm on YouTube, where
YouTube? Yeah,
yeah, I upload all my lectures uh, in on the uh, channel of Institute for Maritime and Ocean Affairs. You just Google, and everything will come out. You can download my book, my ebook on the West Philippine Sea and other materials from that site, Institute for Maritime Affairs, Institute for Maritime and Ocean Affairs.
Ocean
All
Affairs.
right, Justice Carpio,
Ivan,
do you have any last closing thoughts for our audience? You know, any last parting words about the West Philippine Sea and why this is so important?
Yeah, we have to build on the arbitral award. So let us m- the, push our government to bring China to arbitration on the extended continental shelf, because everything is frozen now under the UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. They will not act on all those claims because they are overlapping. We have to go to arbitration. That's the duty of the government official, to bring this to arbitration to resolve it. So we demand that they bring this issue to arbitration. Thank you.
Once again, retired Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio, thank you for being with us at Citra PH. And this has been Citra PH, the podcast on Philippine affairs and Filipino interest. This has been Ivan at home and Inform PH Alex coming to you from Manila. Be sure to follow our social media for updates on our upcoming podcasts and for a catalog of our old episodes. We are at Citra PH on X and on YouTube. And you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Citrap PH. Philippines, thank you and good night. Mabuhay.
okay, thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you.
I,
So we
I
stay
guess we
for
can
5 minutes. Yeah.